So can you make good money leasing a semi-truck with Prime Inc? Nope. Okay, now hold up, bear with me. Now you can make good money leasing as a lease operator with Prime Inc. However, you actually have a very short window of opportunity to do so if you're trying to make some decently sized checks. So when it comes to leasing as a whole, you know, for the 3 years, it still doesn't sound like it's worth it. But if you're smart with your money and you're willing to plan your entry, you actually can. Now, like I said in my last video, or my last video, I'm not advocating to lease as a first option. It's just many people who don't understand how to manage money, they're not able to operate within the tight margins, so they end up suffering more than somebody else. Like, I didn't suffer because I understood having a savings and whatnot. But I also learned when freight pay is the highest, depending on the division you're in. Now, this is something I'm going to touch on in a later video, but depending on whether or not you're with Prime, CRST, US Express, or completely self-dispatching, if you're in refrigerated, flatbed, dry van, depending on what time of year it is, when you can make the most money, so stay on the lookout for that. But this time we're going to talk about when you make the most money in Prime's refrigerated division. Let's do it. All right, so just like I said a couple seconds ago, depending on what division you're in, regardless of whether you're with a company, leased onto a company, or self-dispatched, this could even impact company drivers. I'll cover that in a second. Depending on what division you're in and what time of year, there are times where there are the most profitable. So I'm just gonna cut to the chase. With Prime in the refrigerated division, leasing or company, you'll make the most money in Q3 and Q4. Now, this is actually evidenced by a report from DAT. I'm gonna look for it and put it up in the editing process. But during refrigerated time, during times where you make the most money in refrigerated, you actually see Q3 and Q4 being the most profitable because that's when harvest season is at its peak. Now, you do have crops, produce, and meat that are available throughout the year depending on the region, but it's the heaviest in the 3rd and 4th quarter of every year. Now, of course, how does this impact company drivers? You actually find you get the most miles and less downtime in between loads. Now, Prime, of course, does keep you moving quite a bit, but it's even more intense, especially if you're running teams. So if you're gonna work in refrigerated, Q3 and Q4, outside of that, if you're with a company, see if you can switch divisions depending on what time of year it is and what division is the most profitable at that point. But wait a minute, I signed a lease. Does that mean I'm gonna be screwed for 3 years and only be okay when it's Q3 and Q4? Not necessarily. It's just with the tight margins, it becomes a little more difficult outside of that. And this is when it boils down to just understanding smart business practices, especially with finance. Turn on your e-fund, make it automatic, or have an automatic transfer set up. I would recommend 5% of the total load pay to go into some sort of high yield savings. At the time, the e-fund was paying 4.6. When I first looked up that report, 4.6%. But I decided to use an upgrade savings account because they were paying 5% at the time. So I decided to set up auto transfers there. Because and here's why I say this, when you are in business for yourself, there's no PTO, there's no benefits. This is something self-dispatched owner operators have to deal with. There's no benefits, there's no PTO. Your paid time off or your ability to take time off is based on your ability to manage your own finances and give yourself a cushion, okay? This is why like I get a lot of shit from people because I'm not on the hating the lease bandwagon, because I understood financial principles and I made it work. Like I said in a previous video, I have a stay-at-home spouse and 3 kids, and I was able to support them entirely driving solo. Driving team and embracing became an instructor. Of course, the revenue became higher, but I found myself needing to do that outside of the 3rd and 4th quarter of the year in order to sustain the income I was making in the 3rd and 4th quarter of the year, to be repetitive and beat a dead horse. Look, so basically, depending on the division you're in, you're gonna notice the most profitability at specific points of the year. This is where a lot of people get things wrong because they're expecting to make, you know, Prime says $1,700 to $1,800 a week on average. You have a really high week and then you have a low week, but because you experienced the low, you think it's false. whenever I saw those comments, it told me these people don't know how averages work. So those comments I would immediately discredit. But ultimately, there are times where the averages are much higher. This is as a lease operator, this is as a self-dispatched owner-operator, or an owner-operator with his own authority leased onto a company. So if you want to know more about that, when is the most profitable depending on the division you're in or what you're hauling based on the time of year, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and turn the notification bell on, because I got more videos coming out, not just for truckers, but specifically owner-operators. My name is Jorge Cruz, founder of OTRF Transport, and stay safe out there. Da, 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 da.